Gameranx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight up gameplay and some first impressions of the latest games releasing. As always, I'm your trusted guide, Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about No Man's Sky. Let me just start by saying this is my most requested Before You Buy ever. It's probably safe to say that if there's ever a big game releasing, I got you covered. I'm gonna make a video about it. But okay, No Man's Sky. Oof. Okay, here we go. Keep in mind, I went in with zero expectations, didn't really follow the hype much, so I'm kind of happy I'm in this position because some people's perception could be kind of clouded by massive expectations and the hopes and dreams of what this game could be. But I've tried really hard to keep myself aside from that because honestly, I was skeptical. I wasn't sure if the game could meet any expectations that were put upon it. So if you're asking, is No Man's Sky the game to end all games? No, not at all. But believe it or not, the whole size and scope of this procedurally generated galaxy isn't really the main event. It's kind of more of like a simple backdrop for what is a decent little crafting survival exploration sim. And if you know anything about crafting survival exploration type games, is that they're not for everyone. No Man's Sky is honestly kind of annoying at first. It takes a few hours for you to get into the swing of things and unlock some of what the game has to offer. You may even find yourself annoyed. Numerous times within the first 2 hours of the game, I kept saying, this is it, fuck this shit. But it wasn't until I jumped a few sectors in space, started meeting aliens, deciphering their languages slowly, encountering space pirates and space battles, and generally more exciting planets is when I discovered what the game was really going for, what it really set out to do. It's not really Skyrim in open-ended space, it's much smaller. The idea here, I think, is to make you feel lonely as you peacefully explore and mine elements on a planet and discover stuff. The general gameplay loop can feel repetitive as you roam around planets and mine stuff with your laser. It can feel a bit boring at times. Mining takes a while. If you remember slowly breaking down cubes in Minecraft, this is very similar. But the procedurally generated worlds manage to be at least somewhat interesting, and there's enough stuff placed on the map to keep you feeling busy and keep you exploring. The game does manage to tap into that player reward thing that makes you feel like you're being rewarded for all the exploration you do. It's basically what all the game is built around, and I think that's when it works best. Basically what you're doing here is mining and using resources not only to keep yourself alive, but also to upgrade your equipment and keep your ships fueled so then you could explore more. You're always engaging with the in-game economy, and I like that. Ultimately though, many players are probably going to struggle with this because there isn't much meaning. Lots of it is lifeless. There's echoes of like a choose-your-own-adventure type of thing with scenarios and some encounters, but it leaves a lot up to the imagination and a lot more to be desired. Movement starts slow with a lowly little jetpack and a very short sprint with a cooldown. You can craft upgrades to fix these things, but it takes a bit of time, and with the finicky inventory management with limited spaces, at least in the beginning, you might find yourself, well, annoyed and underwhelmed, especially if you engage in any combat. But hey, at least you can upgrade your blaster. Still doesn't make shooting very fun. The same goes for flying your ship. The cockpit often looks the same despite changing ships, and they control kind of slow. Dogfights in space never really feel very action-packed, and down on the surface level you don't have as much control over your ship as you'd like. It makes sense to restrict me when I'm steering, but I'd still like to be able to swoop down as low as possible and maybe even scrape the surface with my ship, but the game doesn't let me. I think some players though are gonna love the depth here, and that's what I like. The little things I didn't discover until hours into the game that I wish I knew much earlier. I can see subreddits and forums exploding with tips and tricks already, and I like games that have stuff like that. You know, kind of like how when Minecraft first started out, or even Dark Souls. As much as the game is pretty lonely, we're all discovering this stuff together, and I think No Man's Sky deserves some props for that. In terms of technical issues, I did encounter one crash, not so bad, but I've heard others encountering a ton more. The game looks okay, you know, amazing from an art perspective, but there's a lot of pop-in that hampers that. I guess it can be forgiven considering what the game is actually doing. And of course, this is on the PS4 as the PC version is yet to release, hopefully in a few days. The online component is weird. You know, players can all name and discover their planets, and apparently they can encounter each other out in open space, but since things are kind of random and infinite, it's unlikely. That word was even used by the developers, but so far as the time of this video, no one's really gotten it right and seen one another. There are even reports of it not really even being true. I just ask, what's the point? Why waste the time, money, and resources and server space for some feature like that that maybe will happen? I don't know, that's just more of a personal gripe aside. But back to the visuals, the visual design is great here. The galaxies, the skies, and planets look cool and colorful. Planets did manage to remain unique enough to get me hooked on actually trying to explore as many as I can. Some planets are nice and tropical, others are filled with trees, some are completely barren with storms that can kill you in an instant, and the whole 80s synth soundtrack fits the vibe well. And I'm gonna keep saying this, I think it's gonna be different for everybody, but for me, it works the best when you're just exploring planets, looking at the beautiful visuals, hearing that cool music, and feeling the sense of rewarded progression for exploring. I like being incentivized to explore, and it seems like that's what No Man's Sky is completely designed around. You just really have to put the time in to get to the good stuff. To some, it will be a passive exploration game to play with tons of player rewards, but to others, it'll be a boring, repetitive grind fest. It's definitely an indie game, and you need to go into it knowing that. I think with such a small team, this game is still an accomplishment. It's certainly a much better survival exploration type sim game than whatever We Happy Few is shaping up to be. Either way, no matter what side of the table you're on, No Man's Sky feels like a big fat just okay. It's not as amazing as people were hoping, and it's definitely not as bad as haters were shouting. It just is. At least for me personally. Is it overhyped? Yeah, sure. I say this a lot, but No Man's Sky is seriously not a game for everyone. But I think even for the people it is for, it's far from perfect. But it will grow on you. So guys, that's No Man's Sky. I tried to tell you how the game is, some pros and cons, and some personal opinion from me. But of course, the other thing behind Before You Buy videos is not only just to inform me, but to also talk with you guys. So let us know in the comments how you feel about No Man's Sky. If you did pick it up, if you were super hyped, are you disappointed or satisfied? And if you haven't picked it up, maybe you're on the fence, did this video convince you to go and get it or to stay away? Let's talk about anything No Man's Sky down in the comments, and of course, if you guys have any more questions for me, you can ask me at Jake Baldino on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all those places. Clicking the like button helps me out so much and lets me do more Before You Buy videos, and subscribing if you're new is a great idea because we put out videos on gameranx every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.